podcast featuring enlisted commissioning programs, and our presenter today is our very own Senior Master Sergeant Jamie Supinger from A1K. At this time, please mute all mics during the duration of today's training. Should you have any questions, please either annotate it in the chat or raise your virtual hand. Also, upon the conclusion of today's training, please take some time to complete the training evaluation via the link annotated in the chat. I will also resend it at the conclusion of today's briefing as well. This training is being recorded and will be available on the AFD University website. The link is also in the chat. At this time, I will turn it over to Senior Master Sergeant Supinger. Ma'am, the floor is yours.
Awesome. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for attending. We are recording, and as Ms. Patricia said, it's going to be uploaded onto the AFDW University. So today I'm going to go over the enlisted commissioning programs. SLEPO has came out. If you haven't received the message, it is out. And there's always a lot of questions about it. So our idea was to have an AFDW external learning about all the commissioning programs. So today we're just going to go over the background, some program overview, the timeline of the main ones that AFDW A1KF manages, and then just general information requirements and common trends for the top three that we manage, SLEP-O, SLEP-A, and the SOAR program. And again, if anyone has any questions, feel free to raise your hand at any time or put in the chat your question. All right, so what is the correct program for you? So if you have a degree or you'll complete your degree by July of this year, you are eligible for SLEP-O. If you're between 30 and 90 credits, you would be eligible for SLEP-A. And if you have less than 30 credits, you're eligible for SOAR. These items are non-waiverable. So if you complete your degree in August, then you would be eligible for SLEP-O for next year's program. Okay, so some terms and some definitions that I'm going to be using a lot. There is a difference between a selectee and being nominated. And then we'll get into that on the next slide. Just know that there is a big difference between those two words. The SL is the senior leader board, referring to the top 5 board, which where all the nominations go to to determine if they're selected or not. So for AFDW, COCOMs, DRUs, and all agencies that fall out of MAJCOMs fall under AFDW. All of that goes up to the half DS board. All right, so the overview for SLEP. So it's an annual call. There are 2 categories, the SLEP-O, which you have a degree or you're going to complete it by July of that year, and then the SLEP-A, which you do not have a degree and you're trying to get one. So this SLEP was created to allow senior leaders to directly select exceptional performers to go through OTS. So MAJCOMs may provide their own guidance or instructions. So we receive from AFPC a general guidelines on what needs to be in the packages, and each MAJCOM can create their own guidance. So if you've been in a different MAJCOM before, then you'll know that their instructions may be different than our instructions. You can see the different MAJCOMs that are listed that have the opportunity to select 2 and then nominate 2. So each of those MAJCOMs, again, we fall under AFDW, and the Worldwide Mission falls under the half DS board. So the half DS will select 2 and then nominate 2 for the senior leader board. So those 2 that are selected are going to OTS. Like they've they're good. The two that are nominated will go against each nominations from each of the MatchComs to the senior leaderboard, and those top 5 can select 2 each. And so that's why the difference between a selectee and a nominee is very big. All right. Okay, so AFDW A1 roles and responsibilities. We support the HAF-DS in the selection process through the boarding and review of all the nomination packages. And then after that board, we receive the 2 selectees and 2 nominations from the HAF-DS. Then we receive all the 2 nominations from all the MatchComs to go up to the senior leaderboard. So we also coordinate that board as well. And then we assist in developing the guidelines for with AFPC. So for the timeline, so for SLEPO, the PSDM rolls out usually around in the March timeframe. This year, the deadline is May 20th, and these are current dates. So this year, all the packages need to come to AFDW A1 KF by May 20th. We will get that to the HAF-DS board. By 15 July, the HAF-DS will select 2, and then they nominate 2. August 19th, right after that, on that 15 July, the 2 nominations, along with all the 2 nominations from the MatchComs, go to the top 5, the senior leaderboard. And then they have until August 19th to make their selection. And then that all goes to AFPC. AFPC does all of their stuff. And then around in October, they members are notified of their selection, and the official notifications go out for everyone. For SLEP A, the PSDM usually rolls out in the June timeframe, and then it's basically the same. Nominations are due for the HAF-DS in late August, and then in the early October, we'll receive the results from the HAF-DS board, which is the 2 selects and 2 nominations, and those go up to the top 5, and it's just pushed out. And then mid-December is when people are notified if they're selected or not. For SOAR does not go through a HAF-DS board. The PSDM rolls out usually in the November timeframe. Early July, the nominations are due to us, and then we get those up to the Air Force ROTC board. For this one, as you may know, there is a supplemental board out correctly for SOAR. So if you do have less than 30 credits and you're interested in the SOAR, there is a supplemental board, and that is due to AFDW A1 May 2nd. This is the first time that they've done a supplemental board. Because of the stringent requirements that we're going to go over, there are not that many eligible airmen, and because of that, they decided to have the supplemental board. So for SLEP O and SLEP A, here's some just general information. So for SLEP O, last year we received 44 packages and 18 packages for SLEP A. You have to remember that AFDW and we get all the packages from the worldwide mission, and a lot of these are higher ranking people. A lot of these positions are either vectored or highly competitive positions. So the competition is very strict. Like everyone has a great package. So it is very hard to compete at the AFDW board or the HAF-DS board through AFDW. Okay, so all the COCOMs, ERUs, Air Force elements are allowed to submit up to 2 nominees to AFDW A1 for the HAF-DS consideration. And again, the HAF-DS will select 2 and nominate 2, and those 2 nominations go to the senior leaderboard, along with 2 nominations from each of the other MatchComs. And then SLEP is only applicable to regular, to active duty Air Force, not the Guard and not the reserves. All right, so to be eligible for SLEP, either O or A, you must be medically qualified. You cannot have any medical assignment limitations. You cannot have a 469, and you cannot be exempt on any of your fitness program requirements. The minimum AFOQT score is 10 in qualitatives and 15 in verbal. And if you are if you're trying to go for a rated position, the minimum score is 10 and then a 25 in the appropriate for rated section. For non-STEM degrees, it's a 2.5 GPA. If you're doing a tech degree, which the tech degrees are listed, there is no minimum GPA. And for any rated officer position, it is a 2.5 minimum GPA. So all waivers must be approved prior to and then submitted with the SLEP-O package. And we'll get into waivers and exceptions to policies. SLEP is open to all ranks. All right, for SLEP-O specifically, you must possess a bachelor's degree or for this year completed before July 17th, 2025 from an accredited school. You must meet all the factors and you must be a U.S. citizen. And you cannot reach 40 years of age by selection date. Now, if you're going for a rated, you'll see here in a bit, you can't, 33 is the age where you need a waiver. So requirements for the package. There is a SLEP-O nomination worksheet. You have to do an essay on why you would like to become an officer, 2 letters of recommendation, which what I would recommend is for the first letter of recommendation, have it signed by your unit commander if you're in a traditional squadron, and then endorsed by your group, and then endorsed by your wing, and then have somebody else do that second letter of recommendation. If there's 3 letters of recommendations, we do remove one. We review all the packages and then we have to reach back out and ask which one you would like to be removed. So the endorsement is kind of a cheat way to get around that and still have, because they can still write like a paragraph or something while endorsing it. You'll need the SURF. The 1206 is 10 lines of a narrative statement. So you can do it in paragraph format or you can do it in 10 narrative statements, however you would like to do it. Last 5 EPRs, EPBs, your AFOQT scores and the PSM scores. If you're only if you're doing a rated officer, your fitness, and again, it cannot show any exemptions to any components. College transcripts, and it must include your overall GPA, especially the one that has the degree. If you can make that the first one, that would be great. There is a statement of there's a determination worksheet, the form 56, which is, we have instructions on how to complete that form. It is a long form. And then the Air Force form 422, it's the profile form, which you have to request through medical. So if you're thinking applying to the to SLEP, any of the commissioning programs, you'll need this form in your package. So you want to request it through medical right away. Some medical units are very good about getting it to you. Some take a while. And then all the completed waivers and ETBs. For SLEP A, so it's for candidates who do not possess a bachelor's degree. You do complete your degree while on active duty status, so you're still getting paid, and there's a tuition cap of $18,000 a year. So some limitations with the schools: it must be an accredited school, and it must have an agreement with an affiliated crosstown Air Force Reserve or ROTC agreement. So basically you're assigned to that Air Force ROTC detachment. You don't participate in ROTC, but that is the vehicle that they use to pay for your tuition. that was probably one of the biggest things last year was people were picking schools that weren't associated with one, and so they would have to apply for a different school. And so as soon as you're commissioned through OTS upon graduation. So again, you have to complete at least 24 semester hours, but no more than 90. And then by the start of the fall semester, and then you have to complete your bachelor's degree within 3 years. The AFOQT does not change, neither does the waivers, and the 2.5 GPA does apply. And the transcripts that you do turn in, we do have to find out the average of all your transcripts. So you do calculate that to make sure you're above the 2.5. And then the SLUB A package requirements are pretty similar. The only thing that is majorly different is you need to have a letter of or an evaluated degree plan. And then you need a letter of acceptance if you're planning to attend a different university than the degree plan or from the transcripts that you already have. So the 90 credit limit. Oh, okay. So for the 90 credit limit, does that include minor credits or just the majors? So that is all your credits. The only credits that don't count would be your CCAF credits. So anything that went towards your GPA that we're calculating, or that you transfer to that school to count towards your evaluated degree plan, that is what counts. And then long time for the SLEPO deadlines. No, the SLEPO deadlines, there's not anything different for rated positions. Okay, so for SOAR is a scholarship program through the Air Force ROTC. So you receive a scholarship and you must have at least 3 to 4 years left of schooling to go to. So for SOAR, you do separate from active duty, so you do not receive your active duty paycheck, and you enlist into the reserves, and then you're enrolled in ROTC, and that is you get your 18,000, and you get the textbook allowance, and then along with a monthly stipend. Any tuition and fees above the 18,000 are responsibility of the member. So for SOAR, the eligibility, I kind of touched on this. This one, it's hard for people to meet. So you must be under 31 years from the December of the year you're going to graduate. So basically, you do the math. So if you have to have at least 3 to 4 years left. So if we minus 4 years from 31, you're looking at 27. So if you're older than 27, you really aren't eligible for the SOAR program. Okay, and then there's a question. Do higher GPAs give your package advantage? So it depends because it is the HAF-DS who's looking at these packages and decide, and we do have a board. So I know some people will put some package like GPAs on the list that they check. I think it's more of a deciding factor. Like if you're looking at two great packages and this person does have a stronger GPA history, then yes. Were people who were selected and nominated right at that 2.5, 2.6 GPA? Yes, there has been tons of people who've been nominated or selected that have a lower GPA. Right. And then so basically you're 27 years old and you have a minimum of 12 semester hours that has a GPA, but no more than 30 semester hours. So CCAF does not count because you're not given a GPA. This is not waiverable. The age is not waiverable. The SOAR program, there's not that much that is waiverable. And again, you have to select a school that's affiliated with a ROTC agreement. Package requirements are about the same. This does the evaluated degree plan. For the SLEP A, you can use the Air Force Form 48, but it's not mandatory for this program. It is mandatory, and that is filled out by the ROTC detachment. But everything else is pretty much the same. For ETPs, so especially for SLEPO, if there's any ETPs that you need, you're going to create a memo, and it's going to be signed by the commander and inserted in the package. That is all you need for a approved waiver, except for an age waiver, when you submit the package to AFDWA1. For the age waiver, it is different. We do have a template out there. So if you're trying to go for a rated position and you're over the age if you're 33 as of 17 September 2025, you must submit an approved rated ETP package. So that has to be started before you turn the package into us, because that has to be routed through AFDW A1KK, and we do have instructions in our guide. Basically, you do the memo, that gets signed by your commander, and then along with like your EPB, your SURF, and your all your scores for AFOT and the PSCM or the TBAS report, that's going to get sent to the AFDW A1K workflow. It is a great idea to give me to get our branch a heads up that it is being submitted, so then that way we can let them know and we can track it. That goes up to half A1 for approval, but it does get endorsed by Mr. Little, who is the AFDW A1 director. So there's a little bit more to it. If it's still routing, just put your draft, what you routed up to A1K in the package, and then submit that to us, and then we can track it down if it's not officially approved. Usually A1, half A1 will just send out a mass memo stating that these people have been approved. And normally they wait towards the end so they can just do one memo and not onesies and twosies. So just because you haven't gotten it back, just keep in touch. But if it was me, I would still submit my package by the due date and just put a memo in there stating like you've routed the ETP and it's currently, in the wickets getting approved. And that's another reason to let us know if you're doing an age waiver, because we can try to get it expedited. And the sooner you get it in, the better. So some common trends that I saw last year were the PT tests are good through the half DS board, but then let's say your package was a nomination package that's going up to senior leaderboard, but your PT test expired. So I highly recommend, if you know your PT test is expiring in June or July, I would highly recommend just taking it before you turn in your package so you have a PT test that's good all the way through. When we get the half DS nominations back, if the PT test is expired, I do reach out and I get an updated PT test, and somebody was disqualified because now they were exempt on something. So that does happen. So I highly recommend making sure your PT tests are good all the way through all of the boards. Also another thing, when you select your officer AFSC that you would like to go into, in the Just like the enlisted, the officers have a Air Force Officer Classification Directory located on my FSS. There are certain AFSC, officer AFSCs that you have to have a certain degree type or you need a waiver. Last year, I think I had 2 or 3 packages that I had to send back, and they had to pick new AFSCs because they did not meet the requirements in the AFOCD. I did have one, especially like if you're trying to go for a weather that requires certain types of degrees. You can do a waiver for that, but that needs to be included in the package. For SLEP A and for SOAR, if you're submitting a school that doesn't have a ROTC detachment assigned to it, I had to return a lot of packages for that. And there is not an ETP or a waiver for not have taken the AFOQT at all. Especially if you're in the NCR, there are 3 or 4 education offices that offer the AFOQT. You should call around and try to get tested. If you're able to get tested and like for some reason they're all booked up and you can't test until like May 14th and you know the packages are due on May 20th. If you don't have your scores back in time, I can work with you. However, if you can't test until July, I can't like you we have to have those um scores in for you to go against half DS, especially the top 5. So there's not a waiver for not have taken the AFOQT at all. Now, if you have taken the AFOQT and you didn't score the 10 or 15 that yours required, you can go and take it again. And then it's called the super score. And that's where they take the best scores of all of your testing. And that is what your score is for the AFOQT. So you can get it that way. And then I believe after 3 attempts, if you've taken the AFOQT and you still have not met those requirements, then there is an ETP that you can submit with your package, but that is after you have taken it like 3 times. Has there been a high success rate for the age waiver? Yes, for age waivers, there is, that is not looked down upon or frowned upon. Just to clarify for SLEP O, if we include our last 5 EPBs, we don't have to include the 1206, correct? No, this year they've decided to make it mandatory for everyone with a 5 ETP, even if they have 5 EPBs. Last year we were trying to push to go away from that because it just makes the package even larger. But this year they've decided to make it mandatory. So you do need your 5 EPBs and you need the 1206. But again, it is only 10 lines. Yes. Okay, so here are some other commissioning programs that our office does not in any way, shape, or form do anything for. I just wanted to make sure everyone was aware of them because sometimes they are confusing and people reach out to us and then I have to send them outside. So the Air Force Recruiting Service does have a line officer board. It is very similar to SLEP O. It's the OTS board that you see. And many people, you can apply for both. So if you're eligible for SLEP O, you're eligible for the OTS board. Many people apply to both and are selected on either one. So before we send everything up to the senior leader board, we actually have to check the OTS board to make sure no one was selected. And then we have to get replacements and everything like that. And then the Air Force Recruiting Service does have a warrant officer, and then they do have a Space Force commissioning program as well. The lead is where you go to the Air Force Academy. There's a lot of rules. Again, we don't have anything to do with this, but I do have the link for it. The Air Force ROTC programs. So we already talked about SOAR. SOAR does come through our office. However, the Airman Scholarship and Commissioning Program and the Professional Officer Course Early Release Program do not come through our office, but they are programs that are run usually concurrent with the SOAR program. There's a legal education program and a cyber direct commissioning program that I have links for everyone to check out. And then the medical commissioning programs. This was the information I was able to find about them. So just to let you know, there are a lot of different ways to commission out there. And if you do need a point of contact, you can reach out to us and we'll be happy to help you try to find it. However, again, a lot of these commissioning programs do not run through our office. The only ones that really that do are SLEP O, SLEP A, and then the SOAR program. Here are some other helpful links. We do the active duty, or the recruiting, the OTS board, that they have a guide that they publish every year, and we do typically follow that guide. So if you need an example of an ETP or you're looking for just additional information, if you go to this active duty OTS PA, that is like the first place I go to look to see if they have any rules against it, and then go from there. All right, and that is everything that I have. Are there any other questions that people had? Feel free to come off the mic. Okay, for the 12SI, the guidance says 10 narrative statements. Is that limited to 10 lines like bullet format? Okay, no. So for the 10 narrative statements, they're really looking for, they are looking for 10 lines, but written in a paragraph format is the example that they gave us this year. And I can bring up the example if you would like to see it. Just give me 1 second. All right, so here is an example. I believe everyone can see it. Can I get a thumbs up if you can see the 1206 now? I can't remember if I just shared the PowerPoint slide or if I shared my screen. Yes, okay, perfect. Okay, so as you can see here, for the example, it is paragraph written. And it's 10, so this one has 10 lines, and it looks like it's kind of like 2 small paragraphs. So as long as it's not more than 10 lines, but in the narrative format, you're gonna be good. And I know that the guidance kind of goes back and forth whether or not it's 10 statements or 10 lines, but it's 10 lines. The other thing that I see a lot is on, okay. So on the eligibility worksheet, make sure you're answering the questions. They go back and forth. Yes is not always the correct answer. No is not always the correct answer. I do have to review that for everyone to make sure that they answered correctly. But at the bottom where it says, I know this goes on a separate page, so it's confusing. It's initial only one of the following. So you initial the top. If you know you're ineligible, but you're requiring a waiver, then you initial there. However, if you don't require any waivers and you are good to go, then you initial down here. And it's just your initials. I've seen some people initial both, forget to initial, or they do require a waiver and they don't, they initial, you don't require any waivers. And then it's just signed by you and then endorsed by your commander. The other thing I have been getting a lot of questions on for this nomination worksheet, you fill out the top part, and then once it comes down to MAJCOM information below, you do not have to touch anything. The selecting MAJCOM leader's name, that is for us. And so basically it'd just be the Hafty S. The only thing that you may want to look at is all the required documents, just making sure that you have it in this order in one PDF and not in like a portfolio or anything like that. All right. Are there any other questions? All right, well, if there's no other questions, you can feel free to leave the meeting, or if you want to stay behind. Okay, in order to receive the application worksheets, do we email you or is there a link to follow? So the applications worksheets was sent out in the ETMS2 that was sent out, and then I also emailed them out. But if you did not receive it, I can send it to you. What what's more important to the package, the 1206 or the AFOQT score? I would say really what's most important is actually like the letter of recommendation that you have and what it says about you. I think that the board pays more attention to that. And then the 1206 does not look good if it's just your EPB bullets, just in a different form. We do notice that. The AFOQT score, the only time it looks or those really come into play is if you don't, again, it's like down to the wire, you have 2 grade airmen and then you need a deciding factors, I think when the AFOQT score comes into play. So does receiving an assignment during the nomination process automatically disqualify you for selection? No, it does not automatically disqualify you from selection. If your package is already in, you don't have to really worry about anything because it's already going through the wickets, either you're chosen or not. We're not going to pull your package. If you get an assignment beforehand, again, just do on the SLEP eligibility guide. I believe there's a question on whether or not you have a package or an assignment, and then you would just need a memo signed by your commander, basically acknowledging that you have an assignment, but they still want to nominate you. Would you recommend not adding a 1206? No, definitely they want a 1206 now, or at least for this year. So even if you have 5 EPBs or EPRs, definitely add a 1206. Just don't regurgitate the stuff on your EPB. Try to use new information or different information.
Are there any other questions? Okay, if there are no other questions, thank you, Sergeant Superintendent, for presenting.